Okay, so I'm going to address the revelations that found their way down my timeline in the early hours this morning, I believe it was, because I'm now seeing my colleague address the issue also, and various comments and interactions have commenced on her timeline. So, sorry about the settings here, the visuals. For anybody that knows, I am completely swamped. Going from being, an internet artist, trying to get signed while 9 to 5ing, studying, and keeping up multiple, um, you know, tasks to manage life up until the passing of a dear friend in 2016, where I decided that it's time to take responsibility for my ambitions and the knowledge that I've acquired through the extensive education that I've had. I'm not going to go on and list them. If you don't know by now, then the information is available to you via the social mediums I have set up as part of, trying to um, stop, such situations from happening again that I am suspicious of being an issue and finding various different evidence of in current affairs. And I can see that some of the uh, influential persons on these matters are agreeing with. Anyway, I would like to say and state an observation. Though I haven't read the full article that found its way down my timeline, I just read the headlines. But studying journalism due to being obsessed with news and politics because of my childhood, living near a cemetery, and my parents' divorce. So being back and forth across the county line where my father's family immigrated to the second time around, they settled in this country. Um, you know, caused a lot of high adrenaline outputs when I was young. It was similar with my cousin when she was born as well. Um, I believe probably due to the same issues because she did pretty good in school too, and I, as you may have read by now, went to university at 15 technically. Um, but yes, first and foremost, right? I'd like to say Brexit. Okay, Brexit happened. Okay, so it was like a now we have a divorce bill, so it's like a resignation. Like when people get in trouble in their work and they resign, just to cut out a lot of the nonsense. It's like the UK and Brexit. And recently, Boris Johnson has announced that there's been some really good progress, good news from the EU on some of the deal agreements. So I think there's a new trade deal issue happening there on something. I don't, completely understand the complexities of Brexit more than, you know, if Lloyd's and TSB, you know, separated when they did that. It's something like that, right? Because they were two entities that came together and then they went their separate ways again, I believe. So that's kind of like what the euro dollar was and now is. Um, but yes, it's funny because Dominic Raab, who is the now foreign minister, foreign office minister or something like that, he's replaced Boris Johnson because Boris Johnson was in the foreign office after being mayor or something like that. Anyway, it's interesting because now this has happened, right? Immediately afterwards, this issue with Noel Clark, and I just wanted to state that Dominic Raab had issues with the regulations in the EU, and just from quick research with the tremendous creative work that I do constantly and keeping up my journalistic habits, because I was obsessed being a singer from the minute I could speak, with preventing scandal for myself and others around me. Um, and anyway, I believe it's around that time that Brexit happened. And then when I looked into it, the EU have an anti-money laundering department, and everybody knows you can go to Amsterdam and you can smoke weed, right? Um, and it occurred to me that, basically everybody's complaining about a lot of issues, right, with oppression. I mean, even before there was a lot of immigration from people of other uh, pigments. I'm gonna say pigments, right? With social class, there was a lot of classism in this country. A lot of people in London were perceived to be in better positions um, the further in you go to the capital or the centre of the country. And I feel like a lot of the ways that we were profiled when first immigrating were similar to the way a lot of the football firms um, were initially profiled. And a lot of the stuff that we sort of have been profiled uh, as it is due to the issues that happened with football firms. But in a nutshell, right, there has been news of and protests about police and all this stuff, and it's known. Being a movie buff, you may have seen some movies where there's a lot of corruption, or if you follow current affairs, you've seen a lot of corruption. And basically, the US had to recently legalize a lot of cannabis, right? When Joe Biden came in after Donald Trump. And I personally think that Donald Trump um, has had a lot of experience in business. And I feel like a lot of what he did was a lot of provocation and motivation, you know, um, in his presidential reign. And I feel that after spending some time um, changing my lifestyle to a point where I've had to deal with a lot of people working in public service positions. Um, so I feel like he built a wall and then he fired a lot of civil service personnel. So it's almost as if building the wall was just really for the excuse to basically get rid of a lot of staff that were in positions and not essentially, you know, seeing the fruits of labor. I mean, anti money laundering being so much of an issue with the EU to a point of Brexit causing a deficit makes you think, who is the people responsible for a whole country money laundering? Theresa May was even outed as well from the prime minister's position, and her husband apparently owns the company who sells cannabis abroad. Apparently due to based on a UN report, the UK is the largest legal cannabis supplier. So, it just makes you think to a point where, there's so many things that irritate you, and provoke reactions, so that now Boris Johnson, who is, qualified in journalism also, has come in, and a lot of it has come to light to a point of, lockdown, um, and there's even been some teachers trying to go back to work in Miami, and they're not letting them. because the vaccine has caused complications, and a lot of, you know, the issues are equality. Um, so if your work staff, you know, isn't meeting equal rights requirements, then it's going to be an issue. And yes, you know, I didn't study forensic science. However, I do know that drugs testing is more or less the same as a sexual health test. And in sex offense investigations, DNA samples are taken, and those can potentially be used for uh, drugs, drugs testing. And when I watched one of the videos with the first Me Too movement, I mean, I remember being in personal, social, and physical, or no, sorry, in health education classes, and being told all the telltale signs of a person on drugs. And when I watched one of those videos, I thought, why are you going to a meeting in a hotel room if it's about business? And why are you filming it? You know, it just makes no sense, right? And then when you look at her eyes, it's like, okay, yeah, so you're filming it because it's almost as if you know that you're not a reliable witness. But anyway, um, you know, it's astounding. And you know, there's been a misogyny movement, um, and there's been also, you know, police harassment movements, and you know, pressure can cause a person to find themselves in a position that they otherwise wouldn't have been. This is known as police entrapment. So, you know, I mean, the news has just come out. However, Ti and Tiny haven't heard much since the first wave there. Not every allegation against Harvey Weinstein um, found evidence. However, yes, he did go to prison. Um, but again, you know, it's when you're in a position, okay, of power, of success, it is your responsibility to do your due diligence. I mean, the issue is, it seems like it's to do things in a completely above board manner sometimes is the longer way. You know, it does make things take longer than usual. I mean, I feel like I found that. Um, you know, the more reckless and the faster I go, the more I feel like I'm achieving something. Um, but that's duly because at that point there is room for suspicion until, you know, sooner or later you got to take a pit stop and you got to explain yourself. You know, this is something I learned studying my degree, and you know we're seeing why that is now. But again, I'm going to wrap things up and apologize for the backdrop. As some of you may know, I went in London in a studio apartment. Um, so, you know, this is what genius at work looks like.